I was named Edith by my parents, a very popular name in Vienna at the time. My maiden name was Meyer, and my married name now is Cord. I was born in Vienna. My parents of middle-class Jewish family. My parents were observant Jews. You know, we experienced the Depression, which meant a great deal of poverty and privation and dependence, which I hated, even as a child. And then, of course, things got from bad to worse with the rise of Nazism and the threat, the constant threat of imprisonment and eventually death, what happened in the end, since both my father and my brother were arrested and murdered in Auschwitz. So, and for the family just was on the run for a number of years, and you tried to survive as best you could. Every survival story is unique, because we all survived by the skin of our teeth.
On page 146, you were being smuggled into Switzerland. You say, "We crossed all open fields by running across them one at a time, ducking all the way to avoid being seen. At one point we heard patrols marching on the road and quickly hid behind trees and shrubbery. We realized we were all at the mercy of anyone coughing, sneezing, or making a sound." If that's not confronting challenges, I don't know what is.
The adrenaline is flowing. Well, the running across was one thing, and then the reason we were at the mercy of anybody was because we heard the patrols, and so we hid behind a hedge. And I was very conscious of the fact that we had a 5-year-old with us. So you were dependent on everybody else being absolutely silent. We just hid, and I remember that, we just hid behind a hedge, crouching, you know, and waiting for the patrol to pass.
Did you save your own life?
Well, I certainly contributed by accepting everything and watching myself. You know, you had to be careful. By creative energy, I meant God. I told you I grew up in a very traditional Jewish home, and while I was in hiding, I fell back on that as something to sustain me, and even in Switzerland, I prayed every night because by that time I knew I'd found out that they had been sent to Auschwitz, but I didn't know that Auschwitz meant certain death. And so I prayed for their welfare, because they gave us the big lie that they were going there to work, and we settled, quote unquote, Eastern Germany, Eastern Europe. It was that important for me. And then, and that's why, I don't know if you read that, when I lost one day during a Sabbath service, I lost my faith, just like that. No, God, oh God. And it was devastating for me, devastating. And again, Miriam said, "Why did you cry?" I said, "Because I just lost my faith in God." There was no adult presence. There was no one to talk to. Because God means different things to different people, to begin with. And so I wanted to use a term that was all-inclusive. And so I used the creative energy. Because to me, the Christian teaching is that Jesus is the Son of God, but to me, we are all children of God. Adam and Eve were children of God. We are all children of God. We're all children of the same creative life force. And so that makes us one. I didn't trust my judgment.
You've talked about having low self-esteem, and yet you've accomplished so much.
I don't think so. See, I don't think so. I had these summer jobs working on those outdoor markets, which is about the lowest you can go professionally.
But you talked about a guy who said you were a good salesperson.
But then he said, "Didn't you?" And the two men I had worked for on the markets never told me that. And he said, "Nobody told you?" I said, "No, I had no idea." My professor was extremely hard. Even though I went to school after the war, I said I had a pre-World War II education. I had two old professors, and he was very critical of me. I asked him, because I wanted to go on for the equivalent of a PhD in France, and I asked him. I mean, here I had been working with this man for 3 years. He knew me very well. And I said, and I remember clearly asking him, "Do I have what it takes to go after the PhD?" Talk about lack of self-confidence. And he said, "We'll see." I mean, it feels like everybody I worked with was undermining my confidence in me, starting with my mother, with Miriam, with everybody all along the way. And we've become a society now of blame instead of taking responsibility. This is my life.
Is it the buck stops here for all of us?
Absolutely. And when I speak to young people in schools, I tell them that I didn't lack for excuses to fail. God knows I didn't lack for excuses to fail. You know? And just don't, you know, my parents beat me up, and my teacher doesn't like me, and I don't have a nice house, and that's okay. That's okay. Just take charge. It's your life. And I say that to even middle school children. They're old enough to take charge of their life. You know, when I look at my fellow survivors at my peer group, I can tell you that I haven't met anybody who has turned to crime. Most of the people I know who were caught in their educational years, most of them got an education. They worked their butts off, and they got an education. And most of them, and everybody, educated their children. And they lead middle-class lives. They're law-abiding. They pay their taxes, and so on and so forth. Where does it come from? I don't know. And I often bring that up.
Can you take a look at this class picture from your first grade? You are the only one smiling. As I look through your book, almost every picture of you, you're smiling. To say the least, you had this very intense childhood, dealing with the most horrific of the human atrocities, but the impression I get from the pictures in your book is that this is a happy kid.
I was a happy kid. I used to crack jokes as a little girl. I remember my parents quoting me back that I made a pun, because if you wear your, we didn't have jeans, we had regular suits. And of course we didn't have much money, so both my father and my brother wore the suits for a long time, and the pants get to be shiny. So I made a pun that they shine, in German, sie glänzen vor Freude. They're shining because they're happy. So I was a little girl. I cracked a joke. Yeah, I was a happy child. I wasn't a long-faced kid. In France, after the war, somebody called me the girl who was always smiling. And there was an excerpt from my diary, and I said, I am so angry, but I'm smiling anyway, because I don't care about anything. And I think sometimes the smile was a facade, because I didn't want to let on how terrible I felt. Yeah. I was in school, and I wasn't going to interrupt my education again. So if I do it again, I will never get that degree. Because I remember when I was at the university in France, some of my fellow students would say, all I want to do is be a civil servant, and literally in that tone, then I don't have to worry, I'll get my pension. And I thought, you're 22 years old, and you're thinking about your pension, and I don't have to worry, kind of thing. Life, there's a lot of living to do between now and then. And I had nothing at that point. I was living in a slum apartment. I had nothing. But I didn't want to have this. I wasn't looking for this kind of security and just doing a little job.
He talked about an English teacher who, quote, radiated light against the darkness. She helped you find your vision. When you're so downtrodden, there is nothing. There's nothing but, as I said, survival from moment to moment. And I consider that my moment of awakening. And I thought I was awakening late, because I thought children who have the advantage of school and parents and normal life could get that much sooner. I realized that that's not the case. Remember, I had nothing at that point. I was nothing. I was still being hunted. I was still in hiding. And all of a sudden I had this glimpse. I want to be somebody. My first lesson is what you think matters. It all starts with thought. And ideas have a way of working themselves through. And if I can reach young people or anybody, with the message of just mutual respect and acceptance and sharing. The threat that is hanging over all of us, with several countries that use their resources to build nuclear weapons to threaten the rest of the world. The threat that is hanging over the state of Israel with a nuclear-armed Iran, it's unbearable. Palestinians who are getting money from us and from the European Union, and they continue to print textbooks that preach hatred. It's unbearable.
basic shared values so we can live together in peace. I view this planet as a gift. Look at Mars, it's a bunch of rocks. Look at, and some planets are too close to the sun, and so they're too hot, and others are too cold. So this is a gift. In order to share this gift, we have to share a minimum set of values. We have to share the bounty of this planet to get along. And that's the basis. Those are the shared values. Honoring life, honoring my neighbor. My freedom ends where hers begins.
There's a line from a popular song which goes, "We all have a face that we hide away forever. We take them out and show ourselves when everyone is gone." What is the face that you hide away?
Between my mother and the persecution and a husband who is now sick, and now the death of my son, and now the revival of anti-Semitism, it's unbearable. But I discovered when I wrote that I had courage. So courage is a very important attribute. Courage, you have to have the courage to stand up and speak out. That takes guts. That takes, not everybody, so that's something to cultivate. You need physical courage, not just to jump in the lake or to go skiing and do, do the zip line someplace or whatever. But you need courage, civil courage, what I call civil courage in a society. You have to stand up, and I do have that because I have a strong sense of justice, so I'll do that. and then you have to have understanding. You have to have vision. You have to have understanding. And if you have that and the commitment, I'm very upset. I have grandchildren, and I speak a lot in public schools, among other things, and I am heartbroken when I see these kids wasting their time. It's not that they shouldn't have fun, but they're wasting their time. The little clickety-click computers, they don't communicate anymore. It's all, through Facebook. And why can't you pick up the phone or go out and make a date and do something fun together? No, it's clickety-click in the computer. And it's mesmerizing, this kind of thing, and it's an addiction. I would like to see a world at peace. I would like to see our resources used for the benefit of mankind. I would like to see people who understand that they have a choice, that they don't have to go around hating, that hatred is self-defeating, self-destructive. It's an addiction. And life could be very sweet. We have enough challenges in life. There is weather to deal with, and storms, and tsunamis, and earthquakes, and old age, and there's enough challenge in life. We don't have to go around using our resources and our skills to build lethal weapons and threaten other people. But since we do have to face up, my only answer is that they are like the bullies on the playground, and you have to stand up to them. I don't know of anything else. If you don't stand up to them, they'll walk all over you. The less you stand up to them, the more they'll walk all over you, which is why I don't agree with our government, our present government. And because they're not standing up to bullies. They think talking will do it, and it won't. Yeah, I've said my piece.